Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Today I have with me James and Natsumi from Osada all the way from Japan. And we're super excited because in the current climate, travel has been sort of restricted. And normally I would try and visit my tea producers at least annually. And that hasn't happened for a couple of years now. And it's very sad, actually. I feel more than anything, it's just sad not to have that personal connection.
Oh, I know. And just like people like me who are in Japan, maybe our home didn't start as Japan. I understand your feeling because there's so many business partners we want to communicate with directly, but it's all becoming online, which is not something I'm not used to, so to speak, because I've been in Japan about 7 to 8 years and I always call my family on the weekends in the same way.
Yes.
So it kind of feels like I'm just talking to family with, people who are doing business along with us. So, but I understand your feeling. It's best to come to Japan, touch the leaf and meet the people.
So I guess the first thing I'd really love to do is get to know you both a little bit more. And particularly, I think that from an Australian perspective, people may not have an appreciation of the training and the education that goes into sort of stepping through different roles in Japan. And that would be really helpful to understand. So perhaps if I hand over to you first, James, and I'd love to understand what your experience has been in terms of joining Osada first, and then a little bit more about sort of your credentials in tea and being a Japanese tea instructor. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just to jump into it, it's been all, for lack of a better word, it's been just a lot of luck, a big blessing, a lot of like one step at a time, things coming together for myself. It's been quite an adventure in terms of stepping into the world of tea. Before coming into tea, I was working in a completely different industry, cars.
Oh, really?
Automotive industry. And yeah, I just had a change of scene and I was really interested in organic products, organic agriculture, and all of that area of things. I really wanted to get into farming myself, but just never had a chance. And just seeing tea, something within me, kind of like a spark was lit, kind of the seed started to germinate. And I took this step, came to Shizuoka Prefecture and started working in tea. And I learned that depending on the culture of the company you're in, they might not teach you directly. That's part and parcel of Japanese culture. They kind of expect you to learn yourself. They don't really, sometimes they'll give you a manual, but I was like, well, how do I learn everything that I'm seeing directly? And like, I guess after doing some research and talking to Japanese people who have been doing this longer than I, they said, well, there's this thing called the Japanese tea instructor, the Nihonja instructor test. And I was like, well, it seems like a big hurdle. It seems pretty hard, but if it's a way I can learn hands-on while, doing this, then sign me up. And, it's a big investment, costs a lot of money, but I did it. And then throughout that process is how I learned, I met Osada-san. We got to know each other, for better or worse. I'm just kidding. And I don't know what to say, except it's just been a learning process. It still is. And I feel like my hobby has become very similar to my job. And that's something I can't express with words how grateful I am. About the company itself, well, one thing I can say after about 7.5 years in Japan is that it's the first time I've come to a company and feel really at home. It's the first time that I felt like I really want to go to work, even on the weekend. And it doesn't help because I live close to the company. So sometimes I'll gravitate towards the company and drink some tea on the weekends. But that's not because I'm working here. My honest feeling is I've never felt a part of a family, I guess is a good way to put it. But, they're pretty patient with me and I appreciate that too. About my role at the company, kind of a window for the English speaking. So I help assist with a lot of English, and working at the company, it's my challenge to communicate in Japanese. Of course, I can use English with our customers, and that really is, using both languages is very stimulating for me, a good experience. And basically just building relationships and trying to see which teas work in what parts of the world. And if we get an inquiry, trying to determine what that person would like and building a relationship from there. A relationship from there is essentially what I'm doing. Trying not to make everyone angry at the same time, stepping on too many toes, but I think that puts it in a nutshell.
Yeah, fantastic. No, it's really great. And I think one thing that people might not realize, and I'll just double check that I am correct too, but the Nihoncha, the Japanese tea instructor exams, that's all taken in Japanese. Am I correct?
At current, yeah, it's only in Japanese.
Yeah.
I talked to somebody who was a part of the association on the day that I took the test. I was waiting for the test, just my heart was dun, 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 dun. And I was standing at the back, standing at the back of the room, and there was everyone in the room was, there were Japanese people ready to take the test, except for me and my one friend. We were the only Americans in the room taking the test.
Wow.
And I talked to this guy, to just kind of ease my nerves, and he was saying, well, maybe in 2 or 3 years we'll make it in English. And I was like, man, your timing's a little bit off for me, but and he said, are you okay? Like, can you read Japanese? And I was like, if I couldn't, I wouldn't be taking the test,
Yeah.
So right now, unfortunately, only Japanese, but I've had people express a desire on multiple occasions, like, hey, can we do this in English? I was like, well, maybe someday, not quite yet. So honestly, you probably have to dedicate intense study of Japanese 5 or 6 years. It takes, I think the official site mentions anyone can take it. There's no condition for who can take it, except you probably need a high school level of Japanese. So
yes,
that is the hurdle, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's the Japanese tea instructor and how that's perpetuated. I've been very fortunate that there's a few Japanese tea instructors here in Australia. And there was particularly one of my friends in Brisbane, and before I actually went on the Japanese tea study tour, I did spend a lot of time with her, just understanding the basics, understanding more of the cultural side of things, and just the rigor around learning about tea in Japan. And I think that's something really special to hold on to, and I can understand why that language is being preserved, because I think there's some things that don't necessarily translate as well into the English language that you'd have to work through to get the same impression, I think.
Yeah, definitely. At any rate, if they're going to make it in English, I want it to be the same level of difficulty as in Japanese.
100%, right? Yeah. You haven't been through everything just to allow to be easier in English, that's for sure.
Yeah, just a quick breakdown in case there is anyone considering it. I printed out a page from if you type Nihon or Japanese tea instructor, you can see they have one page, it's up in English. Just to quote it really quick, the test includes, we're expected to have extensive knowledge and skills about Japanese tea, including the history, cultivation, production, brewing methods, and methods of appraisal. So the test is basically broken up into these components. It's 3 texts. I'm not sure, maybe a bit more than 1,000 pages if you put them all together. So it's basically memorizing a bunch of information. But a Japanese tea instructor having this skill set is expected to be active working at culture schools, public schools, elementary schools, or even as staff at tea events, or operating Japanese tea cafes. So if you go online, you can see that same information, but that's, I guess, if you want to define what it's all about, it'd be
fantastic. Now I'd like to ask Natsumi, just a little bit more about your background in tea. It's extensive and I'm in awe of it. And particularly you're ranked 8th in Japanese tea screening, and it would be really great to understand a little bit more about what is involved in obtaining that type of title. And then more on the future, where do you see your role with Osada Tea? And
長田製茶自体は1948年に私の祖父が創業をして、で今年で73年になります。で私は、1991年に会社に入って、入社して20年になります。
So it's a family business, and
I actually didn't realize that. So that's amazing. It's such a long time in tea, isn't it?
Yeah, just passing from one generation to the next. It's interesting to see how everyone's connected to the family side.
Absolutely. People,
もっと経験重ねた会社がいっぱいある。
同じ家族的な。
もっと5代とか6代とか続いて。
He was just mentioning that it's not too uncommon in Japan for generations in the tea industry to run on for like 5 or even 6 generations.
Wow.
So I guess we're at 3rd, going on to 4th at some point soon.
コンペティションの話ですけど、14年前に第56回の全国茶審査技術競技大会っていうのがあって、それは京都であったんですけれども、そこで で全国で優勝して、6段を取って、で6段取った以降は、競技大会の全体の8割以上の得点を重ねると、1段ずつ上がってきます。なので、翌年に7段を取って、その次の年に8段を取ったんですけれども、で全国大会に出るのも、地方の予選を突破して、で上位、静岡だと静岡で10位に入らないと全国大会に行けなくて、で全国大会に行って、賞を取ったり、商談を重ねていくと、だんだん価値が上がってきます。で全国大会は、第一審査が品種の鑑定になります。お茶を見て、匂いを嗅いで何の品種か当てるっていうのが第一競技。で、第二競技は、茶葉を見て、で、茶葉が1番茶か2番茶か3番茶か4番茶か。それを当てる競技。で、第三競技は、茶葉を見て産地を当てる競技です。で、第四競技が、茶歌舞伎といって、お茶の浸出液を飲んで産地を当てる。そういった競技になります。
Okay, so just before this, let me say, we didn't have a meeting to go over this. I'm kind of hearing it for the first time myself, but let me follow up and add subtitles to all of this. But basically, he was giving a background of how the system in place works and how you rise up the ranks. I think 14 years ago, let me double check, but 14 years ago, he entered into it. And you can't just go bump to the top. You have to like work your way up there. Right. And he gave a quick explanation about his own experience and what year he went from like level 6, 7 to 8. As well as the test
of your the future that you see for Osada tea. I'd love to know a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure thing.
弊社の強みである、その有機オーガニックっていうところと、あと、オーガニック以外の生産者も自演自製、小さなロットでコツコツ作る農家さんがいるので、そういった農家さんのお茶を、国内のお茶屋さんも含めて、海外のお客さんも含めて、私どもは農家さんと、販売者をつなぐための、役割だと思っているので、なるべくブレンドせずにシングルオリジンで、お客さんに提供したいなというふうに思っています。
Okay, so I'm taking notes now. Okay, so yeah, regarding the organic, sorry, I can just take that. Yeah. So we're working with a lot of smaller family businesses or farmers, I'm sorry, that have skills. We've been doing this for many years in the organic industry. It is not easy to organic farm Japanese tea. It takes time, it takes trial and error, but we're very lucky to live near the mountains where we have families who, a cooperative that has been cooperating with us, so to speak, for so many years, at least with Natsumi-san. I'm still kind of learning everything, but his own impression moving forward is that he would like to offer Japanese organic teas to the segment internally in Japan domestically, but to also meet the trends and needs of the overseas needs. So overseas business is also very important moving forward. Unfortunately, demand in Japan is not increasing. Japanese consumers are not increasing their tea drinking habits. So I think not just us, all tea companies are kind of keeping our eye overseas. And he also said building good relationships with these farming families is his role, is what he says, giving back to the community, supporting the community. And to an extent, I feel like that's a little bit what I'm starting to learn too, is like if I can support, it's just so beautiful. I love this area. We'll talk about it later. I forgot to say that in my part, but it's a beautiful area. I want to support it. And last point he said is, of course, blend is kind of the main in Japan, but also now appreciating more of the single origin teas and appreciating the characteristics of the different cultivars. And a lot of overseas customers really love this stuff. And I feel like working together, we can really share that information via English. So that's also a topic of interest for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was, that's interesting because I felt when I visited in 2018 that some of those trends were sort of starting to happen. And I know when I was visiting producers, I was asking about single cultivar teas because it's a passion of mine. And it was I found it particularly when I started learning more about Japanese tea, it was just how to approach Japanese tea and learn about the actual different leaf and the cultivars that existed, and no one had
Yeah.
really given me an approach before. So I started with yamabuki because it was so common.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then what was amazing when I got to Japan was all these cultivars I've never come
Oh, I
across
know.
before, and
So many registered.
so
Yeah.
different. They were all so different.
Yeah,
And
speaking of which, just before the call, I made a cup of asatsuyu. Here's the bag really quickly. This is
oh,
asatsuyu bag harvested in June, and it's just like I think it really comes down to experience, tasting it. Oh, I had this tea on this date, this cultivar. Just building a notebook. It is too much taken at once. It requires experience. You can study it all day, but it's like it becomes a reality for you, it's kind of hard to stick. In my opinion.
I agree. I'm the same. I think after my years of drinking lots of tea, I wrote a blog post about it, about what's the one piece of advice you'd give someone that really wanted to start to get into the rabbit hole of tea. And I said, keeping a notebook and just recording your impressions of every tea you come across, because you don't remember, unfortunately, and you will only encounter that tea potentially once. And your general approach to organic tea, because my experience when I visited Japan was it was still very domestically, it was very much still conventional processing in terms of what the market appetite was, but organic was something that foreign or international companies were wanting or asking about. And I know that you were one of the few companies that offered some organic teas. And it would just be great to understand a little bit more about organic teas. And as you mentioned, it's not easy to produce an organic tea in Japan. It actually takes a lot of effort and requirement by the growers to move in that direction. So it'd be great to understand a little bit about how you approach organic tea, and then just how you intend to preserve that philosophy around organic tea farming.
有機農地に対する思い、これからそれを維持したい気持ち、この辺りの話ですね。
私どものその有機を取り組むきっかけっていうのは、30年前に遡ります。当時、弊社で、煎茶丸ごと物語っていう、粉末のお茶を作ったんですけれども、粉末で、全部体に取り込むなら、無農薬か有機のお茶がいいなというふうに思っていて、で、それを作ってくれる農家さんを探したら、隣町の春野町というところで、そういったオーガニックに取り組んでいる農家さんがいて、そこからがきっかけです。で、その農家さんは、その前に2人の農家さんで、それぞれオーガニックを志して、で、1人は大学で有機農法を学んで、それを地元に帰ってお茶の栽培に生かして、当初は失敗の連続だったんですけれども、その茶の、新芽の出るタイミングで、防除することによって、無農薬でも有機のお茶を作れるようになった人が1人です。で、もう1人は、お茶と同時にキウイフルーツも作っていて、で、これ、キウイが無農薬で作れるなら、お茶も無農薬で作れないかということで、スタートして、隣の場所の地区だったんですけれども、その人たちが地域全体にオーガニックの方法を取り組んで、今ではこのマルセン伊佐川協同組合っていうところは20ヘクタールありますけれども、全量無農薬オーガニックの20ヘクタールの有機の茶園を有する、静岡県でも有数な有機の生産地になりました。はい。でちょっとまだあるけどね。で、有機だとなかなかその他のお茶とブレンドすることが難しいので、そこのマルセン伊佐川協同組合では、煎茶だけではなくて、釜入りの煎茶とか、紅茶とか、ウーロン茶、それから抹茶の原料の天茶なんかも作ってもらっていて、いろんなことに取り組んでもらってますし、品種もなるべく新しい品種に取り組んでもらっていて、有機でも作りやすいような、甲春だとか、あと露光だとか、その辺の品種を今増やしてもらっています。
So he started putting his own energy into the organics 30 years ago, starting with a tea product called the Marugoto. Sencha Marugoto Monogatari in Japanese. So that was a product, and that's a powder Japanese tea, not a matcha or anything. That's kind of where the first organic started with us. And he thought with the trend going, you would like to broaden the range of products beyond just that. And that product, by the way, is still in our store. So like 30 years, it's still there. Yeah. I want to make a share of it soon. Just too busy recently. But yeah, it's a historical product, quote unquote. And yeah, there's if you go to a town called Haruno town over in the mountains of. I'm sorry. Ah, so you've been there, okay. Yeah, up in the mountain area of northern Hamamatsu in the Tenyu region.
Yes, yeah.
That's basically where he started connecting to these farmers. It started with only 2 farmers who were putting their time and energy into organics. There was one guy who had experience through many years of trial and error, many failures before success, I suppose. So he started, and Natsumi, I think his strong point is making connections and seeing opportunities and bouncing on them. And that was how the yamabuki and nedeshiko also came about. He kind of put 2 dots together and drew a line between them, so to speak. And the other guy, he had been growing kiwis without pesticide-free kiwis. And I think that farmer was thinking, well, if we can do kiwis this way, can't we start doing tea? So it started basically with these 2 guys. He gave some more information about them, but okay. And gradually working in that area, I think that the name is technically the Maruse Isagawa cooperative, but I'll get more detailed information at the subtitles soon. And yeah, so what he said in this area of Shizuoka, Western Shizuoka, even maybe Shizuoka at large, this area, I guess it's not an exaggeration to say we make good quality organic teas, and that's something that we're proud of. So also he mentioned that starting with, not with just green tea, but kama-iri-cha, and so that the tamaryoku, kama-iri-cha, also doing black tea, so wako-cha, and also oolong tea and tencha. So not only typical sencha production, but these other variants. Also trying to use new cultivars at the same time, including Koshun and Siyu Hikari and some of the others that are local to Shizuoka and being, more produced in recent years, but also not being afraid to get other cultivars that are more widely used in other prefectures. So that was the gist of what he said. But
so now I'd really just like to move on to this really special tea, the yamabuki nedeshiko. And I'd like to hand it over to you in terms of just explaining to us a little bit more. I try and explain it in my own words, but I think it would be great to just understand this particular tea from your perspective.
山吹なしこでどういう音ってね。
山吹なでしこは、緑茶に、水を加水して、でそこに殺菌をして無菌状態にしてから黒麹菌を植える、そういった新しいお茶なんですけれども、このお茶を作ろうとしたきっかけは、私は新聞の記事を見て、で川村伝兵衛さんという、日本酒の工房の権威の方が、新しく日本茶を使って発酵茶を作る技術を開発したという記事を見て、で有機のお茶でそういった発酵茶ができると、私どもの緑茶があって紅茶があってウーロン茶があって、そのバリエーションも広がって非常に面白いなと思って、連絡をしたのが開発のきっかけです。で川村伝兵衛さんからは、その使っている、菌のことで、オーガニックでできるかどうかっていうのを確認をして、オーガニックでいけるってことであれば、工房を作って、作っていこうというふうに決めて、今から、2009年から稼働して十数年になりますね。で当初は後で製造工程をお見せしますけれども、一つの桶でなかなか温度が上がらなかったりだとか、そういったこともありましたけれども、今では本当に安定をして、大体どこの桶でも同じような製品が作れるようになりました。
Yeah, basically taking green tea, sucking the net, so the English won't come out, but he wanted to make it, make it sterilized, free of bacteria, and just kind of that research, that point, and applying it to tea. And also there's this bacteria, the crudocoldine, the black koji mold, yeah, the black mold. So like I said, kind of taking a few dots and putting them together. And there, he saw the newspaper, there was this guy a teacher. His name is Kawamura
Denbe.
Denbe, Kawamura Denbe. And this man, he had been doing research on post-fermented teas, and I think he was pretty renowned in the osake, the Japanese alcohol osake world as well. And he'd been doing research on fermentation, and at the same time, Natsumi was putting his foot more and more into the organic business, I'm sure. So he got the idea, well, I want to make a post-fermented tea that's nice and that's completely organic. So he called up Mr. Kawamura, and I'm sure they had a nice chat about many things, but it's just one of those things. How do we convey this to people who are interested? It's a very highly versatile tea. Yeah, the health benefits, and like you said, the loose leaf. I smelled this tea the first time. It's highly fruity.
Yes.
I was like,
yeah,
what? It smells so good. And then in my experience, I've talked to people like, how do you brew this personally? Like, I want to know how. I have people teaching me about cold brew. Like, they know more about it than I do in terms of brewing. And so it's been a big learning process for me. The official retail shop we have over here, the Osada and Honten, they have a standard recommended brewing method for this tea, but I mean, that tastes okay, but I like hearing real tea enthusiasts say.
Yeah. And I guess I just wanted to ask you about maybe if you can share maybe 3 other teas that your company produces, Osada Tea produces, that I guess speak to the heart of your business. Because I think it would be just nice for our community to hear what other products you do produce and how you feel about those as much as you do yamabuki, nedeshiko.
私どもはもともと緑茶の会社で、今でも現状扱っているものの9割以上はグリーンティーを扱っています。でその中でも、私どもの会社のある遠州森町っていうのは、平場所の深蒸しから山手の浅蒸しまで、いろんな緑茶を扱っているっていうのが一つあります。その中でもそのオーガニックの、浅蒸しのグリーンティーっていうのは私どもの看板の一つの商品になります。で国内の、ドメスティック市場ではやっぱり深蒸しのお茶が人気で、長田園本店では主に深蒸しの緑茶を販売しています。であとは先ほどの話の伊佐川地区で、キウイフルーツを作っていた伊沢さんって方が五香という品種を植えてあります。五香は、京都発祥の、抹茶の、品種ですけれども、その抹茶を使った恋愛というオーガニックの、最高級の、抹茶があるので、それもおすすめの商品の一つです。あとは、抹茶でそれは有機じゃないんですけれども、ののというお抹茶があって、そちらは自園の畑で自分たちで応用をかけたり、ジェームスも手伝いに行ったりして作っている抹茶があって、それも普段日本人であまり抹茶飲まない人でも飲みやすいような加工をしてある抹茶があって、そちらも非常に人気です。
ありがとうございます。Alrighty, so I guess he lumped it into 3 categories. Basically, our company produces about 90% green tea, ranging from the Fukamushi deep steamed sencha green tea, and that's kind of typical of the Shizuoka area. It has a history starting at Makinohara in Shizuoka. And it's kind of a long drawn out history, but basically open field cultivation of teas tended to be a bit bitter. So they would start deep steaming to lose the bitterness and keep the savory and sweet flavor. So it goes without saying that we are primarily a Fukamushi deep steam sencha producer, but we don't only stop at that. We like to look towards the mountain teas. The light steamed asamushi teas also is becoming one of our specialties. If you go to a lot of the companies that are towards the Pacific Ocean, they just don't have the luxury of being in the mountains, and the mountainous area are close to it like we do. So we have both of those worlds going. So keeping that in mind, if you go to our Osada and Honten retail shop, you'll see that most of the teas are the deep steamed Fukamushi teas. So it's hard to pick and choose out of all of those, but just taking them all together, in general, that would be our specialty, the Fukamushi teas of this area. Also, if you go to Isagawa, the district in Haruno town, the guy who I mentioned who started with pesticide-free kiwis, he decided to go ahead and experiment with a cultivar called Goko. Goko, yeah.
Yes.
It's hard to say that, Goko. Yeah. And it comes from Kyoto, this cultivar, but he started using it to produce the organic koiai matcha, which is the ceremonial grade we make. And that would probably be one of our representative organic matchas. At the same time, we have a non-organic matcha, which is also very, very family business oriented, I guess, if that makes sense. It represents our company very well. It's the matcha Nono. And incidentally, his daughter's name is Nono as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah. So matcha Nono.
How old is your daughter?
She's 18 now, so
Oh.
yeah. And I guess if she ends up meeting someone and marrying, then that person will be the next, person in line to become the family business runner. But yeah, Nono is a very special product. And he said, also, as he said, I went up and I helped with the cultivation of that as well in one day. It's just, there's a canopy of shading and you walk under the nets and it's like kind of hard to get everything going.
Oh,
but
wow.
you have to untie the ropes and move the shading. It's really a workout. Wow. Like a half a day workout.
I bet it is.
Yeah, but going to the tea field, it's so beautiful on the way driving there. It's so beautiful, filled with nature. And you look around the tea field, it's just trees and forests. It's just, you got to come see it. But
yeah, that sounds
it's
like
kind of that's the family run tea field they have there. And it's the Nono matcha, very easy to drink. And it tastes wonderful. So I would say, the Nono conventional matcha, the organic koiai matcha, and to lump it together, a combination of the fukamushi, deep steamed, and mountain asamushi teas.
Are you seeing any major trends with Japanese tea that you see as very innovative or changing historical tea processes that might make them lean into being a more modern, I guess, adapted to the more modern lifestyles that we lead? I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
今だと、ちょっと静岡は少し遅れてますけど、九州の方だと無人で摘採をする常用型の機械だとか、あとは品種もいろいろ新しい品種ができていて、中国系の品種を掛け合わせるとか、サンルージュのような赤い芽が出るとか、そういった作り方はあまり昔と変わらずに伝統を保ちつつも、新しい技術だとか新しい品種を加えて、よりさまざまなニーズに対応できるように日本茶業界も動いています。で、特に今輸出が相当増えてきているので、海外向けの、特に抹茶のニーズに合うように新しく生命という品種ができたり、それを九州も含めて静岡も相当今増やそうとして、高品質なお抹茶を世界に供給できるようにそういった動きにはなっています。
He said Shizuoka is actually a little bit behind in terms of being more revolutionary in the tea industry, I suppose. If you go to Kyushu, they have like automated machines kind of going on the fields, and they have certain cultivars like am I saying this right? In Japanese, they say sun rouge. So the sun rouge.
Oh, sun rouge. Yes, I saw that. Yes,
yeah. So I think teas kind of like this that have good health components and are interesting. These are kind of the forerunners in terms of next generation teas. But I think it really comes to a matter of preserving tradition that is Japanese culture, because tea taken as a product, the culture kind of intertwines itself with the product. It's kind of hard to get away from culture. So kind of keeping the culture that was and still is intact, and also updating our technology and what we can do with tea, as well as adding new and fresh, good tasting cultivars that are easy to produce and at the same time meet market needs for what customers want in terms of flavor. Well, we do have the new Osada Tea Cafe, and the menu is changing per season. And one thing that's been a super hit in Japan, at least, is the shaved ice with flavor. And I know this isn't like, it's more of a sweet and a treat than a tradition and healthy, but it's just a phenomenal hit. And when I say shaved ice in Japan, they do it really well. So it tastes like you're just eating almost like ice cream. It tastes really smooth. And the matcha, hojicha, even it's not tea related, but they have strawberry and other basic flavors. But for summertime, this it's just applying tea to something that everyone loves and wants, and it's just phenomenal sales, honestly. And it tastes really good. It's fun to share online. So in Japanese, that's called kakigori, the shaved ice, with different flavors such as matcha, green tea.
Yep.
And it's not rare to find even in Shizuoka, like a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of density of matcha ice cream.
Oh, ice cream. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So again, this is more like sweets and treats talk, but everyone loves it. And me living so close to the retail cafe is not really doing me any good. I was talking about a yamabuki challenge, but I kind of cancel it out by going there too much to do. But yeah, so まあかき氷も大切ですけど、
これもいい。水よか。
mizuyokan. Yeah, in Japanese they have this thing called mizuyokan, but I didn't really prepare how to say that in English. Mizuyokan ってちょっと英語の説明。ちょっとごめんごめん。I'll tell you a little bit about it more later, but there's a treat called mizuyokan, and it's kind of like a little jelly round ball. The consistency is close to jelly.
Yes.
And Kawardi-san is Natsumi's wife, and she likes to experiment with recipes a lot. And she took the powdered yamabuki nedeshiko and applied it to the mizuyokan. She shared on her Instagram page. It was a really beautiful product, and I haven't tried it myself.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think it's a lot of, in my opinion, applying powdered teas, and matcha is the perfect fit, of course, to culinary dishes. And that goes from, there's a lot of interesting Japanese sweets that's easy to do that with. And even if you look online at tea businesses and companies, I'm sure you're doing it yourself. There are many people pumping out these creative recipes, like organic buttercups, even with matcha, and like just vegan, dairy-free type cakes, cookies using matcha. So it's hard to say, but I think the trend is really utilizing matcha for its health properties and adaptability to a wide range of cuisine items, from savory dishes to sweets, that makes it so functional. And that in my opinion is the trend. Alrighty. So I guess if you can see my cursor, that's the best way to designate where I'm looking.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of going around circular.
Yeah.
This is the building we're in right now. This is the one you probably didn't see.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you look down here to the bottom left, this is probably near where you came. Across the street, on the other side of the street of this, is where we used to be, but now we're moved over here.
Okay.
So this is our headquarter company. It's just so very zen and simple. I'm always sharing this on my Instagram.
Yeah,
pretty
it's
periodically.
gorgeous. It's nice.
Yeah, I really like it too. But
Yeah.
it's like a little house. But
Yeah.
here in the bottom left is where we do all of our packaging. It's in the Minamicho area of this area. Right above that is the Osada and Honten retail shop I mentioned. Right now, right here is a new cafe space. This is a bit of an older picture, so it's not there, but the company has a lot of pictures of the new space as well. And right above that is in Japanese, it's what is this? Okay, so it's hard to read, but it's the Kurokoji Takumi Kobo. Okay, so that's where the yamabuki is made currently, and since 2009, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, just so to give an image of what we're talking about. And then just very quickly. Oh yeah. So we mentioned Isagawa and Haruno during this talk, and here's just a picture. And again, we have a lot of videos and pictures. It's just so beautiful, and the picture right now doesn't quite do it justice, but just kind of, there's this big bubble in the way, but it's kind of the family of farmers standing out in the field. Yeah, this is the Maru Isagawa. I'm sorry, Maru-sen Isagawa. I'm sorry. Here, just really quickly, it's in Hamamatsu, the Tenryu region of Hamamatsu in Haruno, Isagawa, and they do not use pesticides. It is no pesticides whatsoever. Tea leaves are grown in that condition. Altitudes of 300 meters, 500 meters above sea level. Over 20 years of experience. Started 30 years ago. And let's see, what does that last point say? Okay, he said don't worry about it. Yeah, here's a drone aerial view.
Oh, wow.
And if you ever need a video, I mean, I've discovered some really nice aerial videos with music and everything. Before I came, they have so many well-produced videos. So here's an aerial view of the Isagawa area, our plantations.
Yeah,
Very quickly moving along.
fantastic.
And this is just, we have our new little poster here. It's not zoomed in, so it's hard to read, but there's English and Japanese on there. We have these new posters in front of our tea fields out in the mountain Isagawa area. And if you go along to these tea fields with Natsumi, he's very clever about pointing out which tea field is which cultivar. Like, this is Tsuyuhikari, this is Yabukita, and this is whatever, this, that, or the other. And it's just, he has so much information. He knows how they're all grown. Yeah. Yeah, and on the left here, really quickly, this is Izawa Katsutoshi. Oh yeah, he's the guy who went from kiwi to tea and is now using the Goko cultivar for the ceremonial Koiai matcha tea. Yeah, and on the right, this is Suzuki Takashi, and he's one of the main guys from the start also. And you can see, yeah, tea field there. It looks a little bit. Oh, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? And again, this is the Yamabuki facility. Wait. And you can see they're adding some moisture water content to the crude tea before processing the leaves to be refined, processed further into Yamabuki Nedeshiko. So that's kind of what it looks like. And then here is where they do in Japanese, this is sakin. It's the the sterilization, removing bacteria. They use that big machine. Just really quickly moving through here. They're adding the mold to the tea in this picture. This is the room when it's sitting, being fermented. And this is again sterilization a second time.
Yeah.
And this is not firing, but just kind of a little bit of roasting and drying at the same time. And then after it pops out of this machine, it's pretty much ready to go to be stored and then bagged for sale. This is not to me when he was young, when he was a young man, probably around my age. But it looks like he's just checking. He does this every year. Like, he's such a busy guy during the first flush. He's always checking the teas with the farmers, and it starts so early in the morning at like 5 o'clock. I have to start doing that too, getting up early. But that's done. And then here's the lineup, the bottle, and and, okay, so where the cursor is right here, this is organic ginger tea bag with yamabuki. This one is the powdered. This one is tea bag, just plain yamabuki tea bag. And I guess this one is the largest tea bag with, these two are the same, but just a difference in volume. This is what I've been drinking every day, the bottle. Shimbun. Oh yeah, and then Kawamura Denbei, here's the man who Natsumi called to start getting Yamabuki, talks of organic green tea fermented to make a special unique tea. If you look around Japan, there are many regional rare post-fermented teas like awabancha and goischa, and there's those teas here and there, but it's very interesting to see Osada Seicha. It's made their own original one as well.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's pretty unique, and it's, I think this talks about diabetes a little bit, and the research that's ongoing with Yamabuki in terms of diabetes. And come in. It's a little bit tough to translate, but yeah, about clinics and clinical studies regarding diabetes and obesity, and drinking Yamabuki, and controlled studies. Like I said, we can say some things, but there's research still underway for what we still can't yet say. But
I understand.
Like the reducing neutral fats, we can say things like that. But I'm not sure if enzyme is the right word, but there's a particular enzyme, I suppose I'll need to check, but it's related to what causes diabetes. And what we're kind of aiming for is to be able to say that it reduces the function of that enzyme. But yeah, a lot of people do send in their own reports. They go to the doctor, they drink it for like 3 months, and they share their results. So yeah, a lot of that going on. If you need any more information about the diabetes research, I can compile it and send it your way. But yeah, I think Natsumi just wanted to show this.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. It's always nice to see images. Thank you.
Okay.
You can breathe now. Oh, that's been really wonderful. Thank you so much.